Hi friends, this is Mainak Misra and welcome back to my channel. Today I will discuss with you Steven Spielberg's The Fabelmans. Steven Spielberg is not an unknown name in the world of films. He is one of the most respected, celebrated and successful filmmakers of all time. However, his life has not always been rosy, colorful or successful. In his personal life, multiple times he has gone through personal tragedies, trauma, and insults. His boyhood years were filled with personal tragedies. Before his youth even started, his beloved family disintegrated in front of his eyes. In his new school in California, he was bullied, beaten, insulted and attacked with anti-Semitism. So he has gone through personal tragedies and trauma. For the first time, he is portraying his personal life on the silver screen in The Fabelmans. Even though the film is fiction, it is mostly inspired by Spielberg's own life, from adolescence to early youth. In his boyhood years, Spielberg made films through which he discovered his family, familial secrets, and most importantly, life. The Fabelmans is his most personal film to date. Now let's discuss the story. The film starts with a Jewish couple, Bart and Mitzi Fabelmans, taking their adolescent son, Sammy, to a movie theater in Haddon Township, New Jersey, for watching Cecil DeMille's The Greatest Show on Earth. A very young Sammy gets to see and feel the magic of cinema for the first time. A train crashing scene casts such a profound, deep, and wonderful impact on him that he ends up asking for a model train during Hanukkah. He recreates the train crashing scene several times at home. His mother Mitzi observes that and encourages him to film the train crashing scene with his father's 8mm camera. And at that point, Sammy's filmmaking journey begins. After that, he films often, casting his sisters as actors. In early 1957, Bart gets a new job in Phoenix, Arizona, and the family relocates there. At Mitzi's insistence, Bart's best friend and colleague, Benny, relocates there as well. Years later, Sammy makes a film, Gunsmoke, casting his sisters as actors. And then he makes another film, Escape to Nowhere, based on World War II, casting his friends as actors. And then the Fabelmans family goes on a camping trip along with Benny, and Sammy films the entire camping trip. After that, Mitzi's mother passes away, which makes her extremely depressed. To cheer her up, Bart suggests Sammy to make a film from the camping trip footage. Even though Sammy has another filming plan, he reluctantly agrees to Bart's suggestion. Mitzi's uncle Boris makes a surprise visit to the Fabelmans family, and he cautions Sammy that art and family will tear him in two. It is not an easy job. They are junkies and art is their drug. Art will give him laurels on earth and it will force him into trouble. It will break his heart out and will leave him like a lonely person, like a gypsy in a desert. It will give him crowns in heaven. So he cautions Sammy. And then when Sammy starts editing the camping trip footage, he discovers that Mitzi and Benny are having an affair. He is heartbroken and starts misbehaving with Mitzi and Benny for next several weeks. During a heated argument, Mitzi slaps him and then he shows her the camping trip footage that she and Benny are having an affair. Bart gets transferred to Saratoga, California. But Benny doesn't want to go there as he doesn't want to disturb their married life. But before the Fablemans leave Phoenix, he buys Sammy a 35mm camera. But initially, Sammy doesn't want to accept the gift. He reluctantly agrees only when Benny allows him to pay for it. But then he returns that money to Sammy. In his new school in California, two students, Logan and Chad, bully, beat, insult, and attack Sammy with anti-Semitism. Sammy falls in love with a devout Christian girl named Monica, who tells him to film their school ditch day program and arranges her father's 16mm Arriflex camera for that purpose. The Fablemans moved to a new house from their rented house, but quite unfortunately, Mitzi and Bart announce their separation, which makes the Fablemans heartbroken. They are shattered. Sammy tells Monica that they will ship to Hollywood when they finish their school studies. But Monica has her university plans, so she breaks up with Sammy. Sammy is again heartbroken. He films the school ditch day program, elevates Logan but degrades Chad. Logan gets surprised. He didn't expect because he has done all the bad things to Sammy. Then, when quite unexpectedly he is depicted in a good way, in a glorious way, he protects Sammy from Chad. Mitzi encourages Sammy to keep up his filmmaking passion, though reluctantly, but approves of Sammy's filmmaking endeavors. Sammy gets an offer from CBS to work on Hogan's Heroes when the creative director Bernard Fain allows him to meet one of the most important filmmakers of all time and his major filmmaking influences, Mr. John Ford. Mr. John Ford gives him some filmmaking lessons regarding framing. Once the meeting gets over, an overjoyed and amazed Sammy leaves the studio compound and the camera adjusts the horizon from the center to the bottom of the frame. So this is the story. But the Fabelmans focuses on some important point. Opening up private life and personal secrets is never an easy job for an individual. And when the person is a very famous, successful, celebrated, respected filmmaker like Steven Spielberg, the job is extremely difficult. But on the other side, if he doesn't open up, then he will have to carry the mammoth emotional burden all by himself. For many centuries, artists offload their emotional burden through their artworks, and Steven Spielberg is not an exception. So the Fabelmans gives him the opportunity to offload his emotional burden, and he portrays his traumatized past for the very first time on the silver screen. And when a celebrated and a very respected filmmaker like Steven Spielberg makes a film on his personal life, his boyhood years, the world cannot do anything but watches it, experiences it. And that's how the Fablemans comes to this world and shows us how life is and life can be. The second most important point is that how we all feel when our family, our beloved family disintegrates. We all grow up, we are brought up and taken care of in a family. Our morals, values, and principles are built up in a family. So when that beloved family disintegrates, it takes a hell lot of toll on our hearts, minds, our life. And Steven Spielberg is not an exception. However, he dealt with these situations very efficiently like a mature person. He deemed his mother and father as two distinct individuals, and he saw it from a neutral point of view. And that neutral point of view is reflected on the screen. That's the reason he didn't want to make a film from the story that his sister Anne wrote way back in 1999, I'll Be Home. He was worried that it might hurt the sentiments of his parents. The Fableman shows how filmmaking can influence, inspire, and shape up an individual. Steven Spielberg grew up and evolved in the midst of filmmaking. From his childhood days, he has made films. From the train crashing scene to Gunsmoke, Escape to Nowhere, he has always made films, sometimes casting his sister, sometimes casting his friends. He was never short of passion for his filmmaking. His heart was always filled with filmmaking passion, and he always wanted to implement that. And that's the reason, for the first time in his life, he shows on the silver screen how filmmaking influenced him and how he grew up. And he was deeply amazed through filmmaking. Much like Spielberg means filmmaking, and filmmaking means Spielberg. The Fabelmans will always be remembered for a very interesting scene when young Spielberg gets to meet Mr. John Ford, one of the most important filmmakers of all time and his major filmmaking influence. Mr. Ford gives him some filmmaking lessons, and he was awestruck by Mr. Ford's personality. However, initially he felt that Mr. Ford's words were little rude, but later on in his life he realized and understood the importance and preciousness of his words. And Mr. Spielberg has shown this in Fabelmans, that how a major filmmaking figure can influence another upcoming filmmaking figure. And we all know how Mr. Spielberg has come up in the world of films. The Fabelmans also focuses on another important aspect, that is racism, anti-Semitism. For centuries throughout the world saw one of the worst forms of racism, and that is anti-Semitism. The world saw its worst portrayal during Holocaust, when more than 3 million Jews were murdered. Innocent Jews were murdered, killed, destroyed, massacred. And that's what happens when this kind of racism prevails in the world. And even today, one or the other form of racism still prevails in the world. However, Mr. Spielberg was able to protect himself through filmmaking. When he faced this in his new school in California. Spielberg's sister Anne wrote a story titled I Will Be Home, based on the Spielberg family way back in 1999. But Spielberg did not make a film based on the story, as he was worried that it might hurt the sentiments of his parents. So he initiated the project when his parents passed away. Mr. Spielberg and his longtime collaborator, screenwriter, and screenwriter Tony, they started writing the screenplay, and they wrote it in between October and December 2020. Tony Kushner was always part of Spielberg's films, and they have collaborated multiple times. So this time also Mr. Spielberg and Tony Kushner wrote the screenplay, and it took around 2.5 months. The screenplay is deeply personal, as it details Spielberg life, mainly his boyhood years, from adolescence to early youth. The Fabelmans marks the magnificent cinematography by Janusz Kaminski. His camera captures Sammy's magical filmmaking world as well as his personal tragedies, trauma, and insults. And in a few scenes, his cinematography adds extra dimensions. Sammy's mother, Mitzi, looks like a celestial fairy when she dances in her nightie during the camping trip in front of her family and Benny, with a high power car headlight behind her. A very young Sammy discovers the magic of films when he uses his palms as the projector and the film is projected on his palm. Kaminski's camera magnificently captures the incredible views of sunny California. Spielberg's early films were recreated for this filming purpose and with adjusted camera angles by Mr. Spielberg himself. And during the last shot, Kaminski adjusts the horizon in that scene, following Mr. Ford's advice from the center to the bottom of the screen. So throughout the film, you will see the brilliance of Mr. Kaminski's cinematography. Another important aspect is emotional and nostalgic background score by John Williams. He mostly uses piano solos by Joan Pierce Martin, but he also uses some classical background scores like by Bach, Eric Satie, Muzio Clementi, Joseph Haydn, Frederick Kulow. So he has used the classic background score as well. And he also used some contemporary pop songs like Walk on Me by Dionne Warwick and Goodbye Cruel World by James Darren. After more than 2,000 auditions, LaBelle was selected to portray Sammy's character, and Gabriel LaBelle was the right choice. Spielberg's filmmaking passion during his boyhood years is reflected in Gabriel LaBelle's portrayal of Sammy. He even looks like the replica of young Spielberg as he straightened his hair and walked, smiled, talked, stood like Spielberg. So he looked exactly like Steven Spielberg. Judd Hirsch's portrayal of Granduncle Boris is short in length but incredibly powerful, especially his monologue. And Granduncle Boris had a very strong artistic influence on young Spielberg as an upcoming filmmaker. Michelle Williams as a deeply emotional, vulnerable, and depressed lover, an encouraging mother, and a skilled pianist is extraordinary. Paul Dano and Seth Rogen justify their characters, and the costumes reflect the flavors of bygone era of 1950s and 1960s. Spielberg's sister Anne gave some jewelry to Julia Butters for portraying the character Reggie. Michelle Williams also wore the bracelet of Spielberg's mother, Laidler, and costume, makeup, hairstyling, everything looks like of that era. The Fabelmans received 7 nominations at the 95th Academy Awards, and it received 5 nominations, winning Best Motion Picture Drama and Best Director for Spielberg at the 80th Golden Globe Awards, and it received widespread critical acclaim all over the world and multiple awards as well. So I hope that you have already seen this film, and if you have not, then please see this film and let me know your comment down below. Please subscribe to my channel, press the bell icon so that you do not miss regular updates. Please support my channel, the request goes again, and please be safe, please be well, and I hope all the best for your families as well. Thank you so much for watching this video, and until I make the next one, thank you so much and bye.